Well, they've all released by now, and it's that time of year again. The Fortnite chapter is finally coming to a close. And you know what that means? Time for everyone to finally give their thoughts on the entire chapter. And this time, I wanted to throw my hat into the ring. So, hey there everybody, welcome back to the Landon.Stuff channel. And today, this is just a bit of a compilation video. Today we're going to be covering each season of Fortnite Chapter 5, as, we did this past couple weeks. And we're going to be starting with Chapter 5 Season 1, and ending with the last season of Chapter 5, Chapter 5 Season 4. So, we're going to go through each of them, as before, and now it's just all combined into one. So, with the intro out of the way, let's just get to talking. Starting with the launch of every new Fortnite chapter, it's usually time for everybody to enjoy the game, and take time to see how the latest chapter improved on the last map, loot pool, and mechanics. At least, for the first day, before filling Epic Games' inbox with all the criticism and negativity that they could muster.
Oh crap.
It's kind of crazy. But, for me personally, Fortnite Chapter 5 felt different. It feels as if Epic took a huge misstep with this chapter. And today, I'm going to be covering the first season of Chapter 5, Underground, and try to answer the question and give my opinion on what went wrong in Fortnite's 5th chapter. Starting with the map is decent. There's not much more to say. I would give it a 7 out of 10, which is expected for a first season. The map is usually pretty basic, all things considered, with most of the creativity coming as later seasons leave their mark on the map. It was pretty simple with some fields, forests, and a snow biome. The map mainly had Greek theming in its architecture and design, which I was and still am a huge fan of. I personally love Greek mythology and Greek architecture as a whole, so I think it really brings this special vibe to the map that, really makes it stand out and makes it unique against every other map that we've, seen in Fortnite history. But what really brings this map down to a 3 out of 10, and what I am not a huge fan of, is the overall art design of the map. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, just take a look at Chapter 4 of Fortnite. If you look at these lush greens and beautiful bright oranges, they just filled the map and it felt so colorful, it felt so vibrant. It's like they were stripped straight from a beautiful painting. But then, when you look at Chapter 5, you realize that these beautiful and bright colors that just popped on your screen were replaced by these desaturated and lifeless greens, blues, and whites. It felt like Epic was aiming for a realistic look, though, to be honest, it doesn't suit Fortnite in the slightest. You're telling me I can be a giant fishman and run around in realistic fields?
Ron, doing the stinky in the open!
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this as it does improve as the seasons go on, but I was not a fan. And I just gotta say, I would love to go in depth about each POI, but overall, Epic did have a problem with making these POIs just one big building, and then there was some loot around it, right? Some POIs did escape it, like Pleasant Piazza, Reckless Railways. Snooty Steps was kind of alright, but a lot of the POIs this season really did just feel like one big building where you'd fight for loot. I think the standouts were, once again, the 3 I just listed and Classy Courts. Those 3 all were great. I really like Classy Courts. It's my favorite drop from Chapter 5 as a whole. I think it looked great, and it felt great to play through, because it felt like a Chapter 1 POI. It felt like something you would see in a OG Fortnite season, which, again, I think lends to the overall fun factor of the map, or the POI, sorry. But I'm not a big fan of the very plain and basic look and feel to these POIs. As well, I'm not a very big fan of just the one big building where there's a boss that you can kill for mythic loot. And that kind of disdain also carries on for the loot pool of Season 1 followed a very basic structure, lacking any wacky or goofy items that I always look forward to in a new Fortnite season. Items that function like the shockwave hammer, which, allowed you to bounce across the map, or the bush, which, allowed you to disguise yourself as a bush, and then delete some poor kid who had to go AFK to help mom put the groceries away.
Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing Minecraft!
Or even something like the goo gun, which allowed you to spray people with some explosive goo. Underground lacked anything close to these items. I understand that the first season is always meant to have a simpler and more grounded loot pool, and that allows Epic to expand in the coming seasons. However, items like the shockwave hammer were in their respective chapter on day 1, so it feels like it was just lacking that classic Fortnite vibe. Though that's not all for weapons, however, as they took a more realistic approach in their designs. Again, I personally am not a big fan. Looking at these weapons compared to some of Fortnite's past, they just feel wrong. The only thing that stayed around was the goofier names of the weapons, which creates a small issue for trying to take the game seriously. However, I feel like Epic would have changed them if they didn't have to pay for the permission or rights to use the trademark names of the guns. It just feels sort of like, okay, well, we're gonna make them realistic and then we're gonna save a little bit of extra cash. We'll keep the goofy names.
All of you, you're fired. Go on, scram. Get out of here, you moochers.
Deputy
That's right. Keep moving.
You know what? Yeah.
Except you stay.
And again, though I may not see an appeal to the more realistic style for Fortnite, I know that some people might and possibly do find it enjoyable, which I can respect your opinion and I can understand why you'd enjoy it. Again, it's mainly a subjective thing, and I'd be lying myself if I said I didn't enjoy any of these weapons. Guns like the Striker AR and Hyper SMG I actually liked a lot and I felt were balanced well. Overall, great guns. And if their models were redesigned, they could fit in any chapter before this. Though this season had its fair share of balancing issues. The Thunderburst SMG, Frenzy Auto Shotgun, and the Reaper Sniper Rifle. Oh my god, these three weapons right here.
Hey, Lois, what's going on here?
Oh, it's my book club, Peter. Come, join us.
Oh, okay.
They were all incredibly overtuned, and honestly meta-defining. Some of these weapons for most of the chapter.
Oh, shit! Alright!
The Burst SMG was the least worrisome, but due to almost zero damage drop-off, its amazing stats, especially for a burst weapon, and a new mechanic that would remove bloom, this became everybody's main assault rifle. Which I know I said it's a submachine gun. We don't need to talk about that part. It's an assault rifle now. Get with the program. But the Frenzy Auto Shotgun was much, much, much worse. Let's make a picture here. For comparison, take a look at the Tactical Shotgun, as the Frenzy was working as a replacement or a substitute for the TAC, both being fully automatic and having 8 shells normally. The only difference really was the fact that the Frenzy you had to reload all shots at once, while the TAC you could reload one at a time. The DPS, or damage per second, of a golden Tactical Shotgun is 141. Great DPS that nobody should scoff at, especially for a shotgun. Most shotguns I believe have very poor DPS because of their slower fire rates. But guess what the DPS of the Golden Frenzy was? Okay, enough time. 187! This thing could kill a player at 150 health in less than a second! As well, there was a mythic variant of the shotgun that had the DPS of 195! That also held 12 shells!
It's the guy!
Needless to say, this shotgun dominated, with the new pump shotgun, the hammer pump, being a slightly worse version of the original. Hey there everybody, it's Landon from the future here. I just wanted to let you all know the reason why this was kind of a problem was because the pump shotgun, since it got pretty much a slight nerf in the new chapter, it meant that the Frenzy, which was the new tag, which got extremely buffed, like extremely overpowered, the shotgun meta was very focused around the Frenzy Auto, and it was very annoying because of how you had to play with it. Basically just jumping into people's boxes and immediately fragging out. Yeah, I think that's all I really had to say. Anyways, sorry I didn't include this before, but bye-bye. However, there was something much, much worse, specifically for this season. The Reaper Sniper Rifle.
Shut the fuck up. Know your fucking place, trash.
This right here, the best weapon in Fortnite history. With 3 shots in the mag, the bullet travel was so fast that it pretty much had hit scan for the entirety of the season, and thanks to a new mechanic, you could, swap out the sniper scope with any other scope you wanted, allowing you to fight in any range you're comfortable. And even then, if you're taking like a hollow scope, which isn't the best for long range, you can still make it work. Again, this thing pretty much had hit scan. Both the sniper and the shotgun made this game so intolerable if you were playing competitively. Like, it was either just getting headshot sniped in an instant, or getting touched by Superhero Sweat 1579 in your box with a shotty that's got 12 shells.
Oh, these are pretty cool bananas.
Does that sound like fun? Cause it does it to me! Okay, I know I've been very negative so far, though I do want to say again, I did like some of these weapons. It's just unfortunate that the few weapons I liked and I thought were pretty well balanced, except for the Hyper SMG, I feel like that really needed a buff. They were overshadowed by the literal crack-snorting monsters that were hiding in my closet, and under my bed, and in my attic. But I think it's time we talk about what helps to differentiate each chapter. As, what's the point of a chapter, besides the map, if we don't talk about the new? Hey, I just want to say before moving on to the next part, I completely forgot to mention the new weapons that were added. And to be completely honest, I don't really have much to say about them. They were all pretty forgettable, all things being said. Like, who the fuck remembers the Enforcer? Let's be completely honest. Yeah. I think that's another problem with Chapter 5. The weapons are extremely forgetful, but that's its own thing. Yeah. Bye. Alright, so just to clarify, each chapter usually adds something new in terms of mechanics for Fortnite, evolving the game in a positive way. I think the only chapter that didn't do this was Chapter 2, but that's mainly because this was the first time we ever had a new chapter in Fortnite. Epic wanted to make sure that things didn't stray too far away from the original. For example, Chapter 3 we got sliding, and then later on tactical sprinting. And Chapter 4, we ended up getting augments and the capture the point mechanic, which mostly got scrapped in this chapter besides the loot island, but that doesn't matter for this point. What I'm basically saying is that every chapter evolves Fortnite in some way. So, what mechanics did Chapter 5 introduce? Well, we actually have a couple this time. Attachments for weapons, new movement, medallions, and last but most certainly not least, bullet travel for all weapons except shotguns. Let's start with the best of the four. Attachments for weapons. This was leaked a really long time ago. If I remember correctly, it was back during the middle of Chapter 2. So, it was a long time coming. Keep in mind, that was probably about 4 to 5 years ago, if I remember correctly. And I originally thought that this was going to be a cool idea that would allow certain weapons to stay in the game without overbloating the loot pool. However, as Chapter 5 was finally released, weapon mods were finally introduced, and unfortunately, they didn't work as I thought. They work just like every other shooter, allowing you to just change a bit of recoil, maybe make your gun quieter even though it does nothing. And this was a huge bummer to me. I was expecting the return of something similar to side grading from Chapter 2, but instead we got a bland and uninspired modding system. Of course, there was still a chance for Epic to throw some more spice in as the seasons went on, so we'll have to check back later, as we still have 3 more seasons after this one. So who knows, maybe Epic once again was just keeping it very grounded and was going to expand upon it as the seasons went on. So, next up is
Some movement. I'm not seeing enough movement.
adding new animations and slowing down your character's speed when released. Oh boy! People hated this on launch. This did nothing but make the game feel clunky and slower. Eventually they did end up reverting the speed and keeping the animations. Overall, in my opinion, I think the animations look nice enough. They're nothing crazy, they could look better, they could look worse. I don't really have much to say on it, besides, it was fine by me. Good change after everything was said and done, and all of the issues were sorted out with the new movement. So, yeah, again, decent change. No comment. Medallions were also introduced this season,
I found the treasure!
being held by each of the bosses on the map. Once collected, they would reveal your shield over time, and let me tell you one thing, super busted on launch. The more you collected, the faster it would regenerate, and the more shield you would regenerate. That was later on. Early on though, they were broken on release. They were completely busted, you would regenerate almost instantly. Even if you only had one medallion, you could regenerate to max shield. And oh my god, the rate was so crazy. I swear to god, if you got all 5 medallions, sure, people could see exactly where you were on the map, but it didn't matter. You were a cracked out demon. You give a fucking person with a frenzy auto shotgun 5 medallions, they're not dying unless they get headshot sniped. That's it. That's the only way you're gonna kill them. I'm sorry. It's the truth. No matter how bad you try and take them down, it's not gonna work. They recovered 8 shield every second, and it would pretty much happen almost immediately after they got hit. So if they got hit hard, all they had to do was box up and then just play the waiting game until they got back to full shield.
You furry little weirdos.
And then jump in your box again. And then it was game over. They did get pretty, they did get balanced pretty quickly. So, in the end, they were fine. Medallions, again, I felt were pretty basic and pretty bare bones. I really did prefer reality augments of Chapter 4, as they felt varied and helped create a unique experience for each game, and they would cater more to unique playstyles. unlike medallions with their static effects and difficulty to access. But again, they're alright. If we see them in Chapter 6, I wouldn't be mad, though again, I would 100% be a lot happier if we saw augments return in perks. Though, I think I have to give this next one a whole section, as I've saved the best for last, folks, as I finally get to talk about. Alright, I understand, this is a dead horse, and there's no need to talk about this at this point. I think everybody who has dogged on Chapter 5 has mentioned this specifically, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I feel like I need to talk about it when talking about this chapter, and especially this season. So, bullet travel. Or projectile-based weapons.
Brother,
The worst change in Fortnite history.
what's that, brother?
The idea is pretty simple, actually. Unlike previous chapters that used hit scan models for their weapons, which made, guns like your assault rifles and SMGs immediately hit the target when fired, the bullets are projectiles and fly through the air, taking time to hit your opponents, meaning that you'll have to be more strategic and aim forward or aim backwards depending on where the opponent's moving. So, this mechanic right here is by far the worst part of this chapter. There are several issues, but the main problems for me are these three. Number 1, while adding bullet travel, the mechanic for non-scoped weapons, Bloom, was not removed. This means now you not only have to determine where you have to aim, but if you're lucky enough, if you're unlucky enough to get a weapon without a scope, you're also forced to pray that Bloom works with you to help you hit your shots. Imagine if you're trying to use a striker AR, for example, and you get the lineup right, where if you were using a scope you're going to hit all of your shots, but then your bullets just go left, up, right, left, up, down.
Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my god!
And then you really just kind of have to ask, why did God not take mercy on you and give you a gun with a scope? But, of course, I think there's a very simple solution, which I'll mention at the end. But number 2, Fortnite already was a very skillful game when it came to playing standard Battle Royale with building. I understand that Zero Build was kind of a beam fest once they started adding scoped rifles, and it created such a high skill ceiling in builds specifically that bullet travel on top.
That's smart. Oh my. Egad. Well, I'll be. Yikes.
It overcomplicates an already complicated game. You did not need to go this extra step to make it more complicated. But again, I'll be providing a solution at the end that I think would work and would make most people happy. But number 3, fighting from mid to long range with anything besides a sniper just feels so clunky, leaving me to push up so I can actually hit my shots, which is the most annoying thing as I love taking fights from range. My favorite gun of all time is the infantry rifle, so trying to do that and not being able to because, clunky, it feels kind of depressing. But I did mention that I would provide a solution, so I'm going to keep it quick. I believe that there should just be 2 different modes for the weapons. One with a scope and one without. With a scope, you get no bloom obviously, and you get bullet travel. But when a weapon doesn't have a scope on, if they do end up keeping mods and bullet travel as a mechanic, guess what? That gun has bloom and hit scan. I think it's a very simple feature that could fix a lot of the issues because then you get a pro and a con. You get the more accurate shots with your scope, but you get bullet travel. While if you're using hit scan, guess what? You don't have a scope, which means you can't take fights from range as well. And again, I think it's very simple. I think it could be a good solution. As well, Epic could also introduce weapons that are hit scan and bullet travel and make the bullet travel weapons have a higher DPS. So again, there's more skill to using them, but the hit scan weapons are more reliable, it does less damage, create a balancing act, pretty much. I don't think that would be super hard, and I think it could work over pretty well, but I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I'm going to be completely honest, I am beating a dead horse already, so why don't we just move on to... So, what are the extras of Chapter 5 Season 1? Well, I figure we should mention the 3 modes for the initial push of the metaverse, those being Rocket Racing, Fortnite Festival, and LEGO Fortnite. This video is mainly talking about Battle Royale, but I figure they're important enough that they should be mentioned. I barely played most of them, though from the little that I have, they felt rushed, and the only one that I feel could stand on its own as of now, as of the release of this video, is Fortnite Festival. Even though the songs are scarily overpriced when looking at something like Beat Saber, for example, and the lack of a retry button still, even though it's been out for almost a year, it has enough content that I could see it lasting. Lego may be possible now, however, it's still lacking in some areas like not having a final boss. I mean, even Minecraft has the Ender Dragon, guys. I don't understand why you don't add something like that. God, I could at least say a little bit about Lego Fortnite. I can't say shit about Rocket Racing. This shit is worse than a Sahara Desert. It is dry. It is a wasteland. I feel so fucking bad for people who like and play Rocket Racing. Oh my god. And I'm pretty sure Epic pulled the plug on support. So it's never gonna get better. I feel like Epic really missed that Rocket Racing. And I feel so bad for the players and the people who worked on that mode because they got shafted hard.
Take this shit no more, man.
And I also want to quickly mention while we're talking about these modes, Save the World. A paid and pretty much abandoned campaign for Fortnite is usually averaging more players than Festival and Rocket Racing combined, which is really funny to me. Like, Epic, you have people playing your mode. You want to know what you should do? Update it. Give it the priority that other modes get. That other modes like Festival, which is doing worse than it, get. I don't understand why it's that fucking complicated. Especially since this game has been pretty much discontinued since 2020, I think it's very funny that it's, averaging a better player base than Festival and Rocket Racing combined. Again, I can understand Rocket Racing, that shit is, oh my god, it's desolate. There's nothing left. Bro, literally nothing. But besides those modes, and Epic, please give us more content for Save the World, I beg of you, we got the locker UI, and it was dog shit. There we go. I have to talk about it, don't I? Fuck. They overcomplicated another simple feature. I don't understand how they fucked it up this bad, honestly. Same goes with the item shop too. I think Epic should just give us filters or tabs for both. Like, give me tabs to sort between Lego, Festival, Rocket Racing stuff, and Battle Royale stuff. Or, hell, even give me, like, in the item shop specifically, give me, like, a thing like how the career tab has, which I find it so weird that the career tab of all places has a filter, but not the item shop. Let me filter for, I don't know, what's new. Let me filter for just skins. Let me filter for just cars, just Lego kits. Instead of making me scroll through this giant fucking shopping list, let me decide what I want to see in my item shop. I think it's really simple. I think it just makes a lot of sense. As well, give us the similar thing for the locker. Make it so instead of everything is on the left side, how about this? Make it 4 categories. Battle Royale, Lego Fortnite, Fortnite Festival, and Rocket Racing. You go to Battle Royale, guess what? You're going to have all of your normal Battle Royale stuff, which includes your banner, your loading screen, and your music pack for the lobby. So you'd have all your Battle Royale stuff right there. It would just look like the old UI did back in Chapter 3, Chapter 4 at that time. But next up, we got Winterfest. God damn it! Why is everything so bad this fucking season?
This shit no more, man.
It was just disappointing, if I'm gonna be honest. When compared to what we normally got in seasons and chapters prior, that of course being Crackshot's cabin and some cool little changes around the map. Sometimes the map even got fully covered in snow. It was just replaced by a button to get your items. As well, Santa, which once drived all around the map, just got moved to a little island all the way up in the top right, and I'm convinced half of the player base just didn't know he existed. I mean, to be honest, until I went to go do Winterfest quests, I didn't know he existed. Though we did see the return of the Catch LTM, which was awesome to finally see something Epic seemed to have forgotten about, getting the chance to reappear. But that's enough about Winterfest. If I talk about it more, I think I'm just gonna die. I think I'll just flop dead right there. On to the collaborations.
Holy crap! Donald Trump!
They were great. Don't get me wrong, Peter Griffin Cranky 90s will never not be funny. And maybe it's because of Winterfest, though it really felt like Epic was putting less attention into Battle Royale's updates and more into collabs and the metaverse, which I saw as Epic trying to generate the most money they could. and leaving Battle Royale to just kinda fizzle out and just die at some point. They could, from all of these new and rushed modes, make as much money as possible, and even something like the Turtles update felt rushed. As someone who loves the Turtles, it was awesome to see them in Fortnite. And I would never say, oh no, get them out of the game, they don't deserve to be here. They're icons. Though, if you look at the update from a more critical perspective, all we got was 4 weapons that all function the same way, and a bunch of unvaults themed around the Turtles. Don't get me wrong, I still did love this update, and it was loads of fun, but I still felt like the main BR was being sidestepped to these new modes. And I understand saying the main BR is kind of wrong because Fortnite is now a metaverse where, technically, Battle Royale is not the focal point. But let's be kind of honest with ourselves, guys, the player counts don't lie. That's all I'm gonna say, that's all I'm gonna leave it at. Yeah, I just also want to mention it's kind of stupid that Epic is willing to release fun items and movement when a collab goes live instead of keeping it in the game or reskinning the item. They just remove the items outright. Yay! But I really want to end on a positive note. So, why don't we talk about the mini-event? To hype up Season 2, Epic hosted a small event that allowed the player base to, interact and destroy chains locking Pandora's box. At the time, this was the first event since Chapter 3 Season 4, no, well, technically Big Bang, but I don't really count that since that felt more like a promotion. So we'll say Chapter 3 Season 4. And Fracture sucked. So, the last time a good event was Chapter 3 Season 2. Yeah. It's been a very long time since we got an event. Like, up to this point. Obviously now we've had several, but man, it took a very long time. And at this time, it was super cool. And it got me super excited for the next season. Especially since we haven't seen a mid-chapter event since Chapter 3 Season 2, and that was the last good one. At the time, it was leaked that the next season would be something related to Greek mythology, and I was so hyped. I love Greek mythology, and it was finally time to see my favorite part of history covered in Fortnite. All I was hoping is that goofy vibe of Fortnite would return, as I think it would fit perfectly for telling the stories of the gods. As Season 1 finally came to a close, it was time for Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 2. Myths and Mortals. With the launch of every second Fortnite season, there was always something to look forward to. Whether that be the introduction of a standardized battle pass in Chapter 1, or the introduction of bosses and mythic weapons in Chapter 2. The entrance of Zero Build in Chapter 3, which I have to say is probably the reason why Fortnite is still as popular as it is, as a lot of people were growing tired of fighting super sweats that just crank 90s.
Fort Squidward is now all but impenetrable!
Or even something like the mid-game objectives or mechanics from Chapter 4, like the Blue Island. So, when Chapter 5 Season 1 finally came to a close...
We got a #1 victory royale, yeah, Fortnite, we about to get down.
The Greek gods had finally invaded the Fortnite Island. However, I think Zeus lost his passport or something. There was a 17-hour downtime, which was the longest in Fortnite history. Of course, if you're excluding things like the black hole...
What the fuck happened to Fortnite?
Because those were purposeful downtimes. Those were what I think the community calls nighty-night times for Fortnite. This was not meant to be 17 hours long, and I find it really funny. I figured I should start with that. Though, with that out of the way, welcome back everybody. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at all of Chapter 5 Season 2. And, much like last time with Underground, we're going to be covering the map, loot pool, and the new mechanics. So with that being said, I think it's time that we go ahead and take a look at... This season thankfully brought a lot of variety to the map, adding 2 new biomes that we never saw before in any Fortnite chapter. The Underworld was the first, replacing the boring plains that ruled the top left of the map, filled with all things dead, colored with blacks, grays, and beautiful turquoise water. The art design here really popped, especially for being a place for the dead. It looked incredible, and it's probably my favorite biome in all of Chapter 5. Actually, scratch that, it is my favorite biome in all of Chapter 5. And I'd even go as far to say as it's one of the best biomes in Fortnite's history. Something about its design always reminded me of those earlier chapter layouts. Also, a new mechanic that we're going to talk about later helped the Underworld be a really fun area to drop at, even after its introduction in Season 2, especially when compared to the second biome, Olympus, which, unfortunately, it suffers from the same issue as most of the Chapter 5 map, with many of the colors feeling muted and lacking personality, just like last season. I don't want to mention it a lot, but take a look at Chapter 4. and specifically its medieval biome. Both of these biomes, Olympus and the medieval biome, mainly used oranges to fill the area. But where the medieval biome is both beautiful and colorful, and I didn't put this part in the script, but is so saturated, like I mentioned last time, it's like you're playing a literal art piece, like Da Vinci cooked with this shit. Olympus feels a lot more washed out and lifeless. Though, I have to say that the new POIs introduced are very interesting. I mentioned this before, but Epic had a habit of making POIs that were just one large building and a couple of smaller areas around for scraps of loot. Think your Grand Glacier, Lavish Lair. Hell, you could even kind of put Fencing Fields and Rebel's Roost into that category. Though I think this season had a nice variety in its POIs. It didn't just have big building or like area with a bunch of houses. Though, I can't go around saying how amazing Season 2 was without mentioning its flaws. Mainly Grim Gates, and that mechanic that I'm going to talk about later really got on my nerves. I know it's either you hate it or you love it thing, but whenever fighting there, I wanted to throw my fucking keyboard out my window and just quit Fortnite. But the Underworld was that POI with the big building and smaller areas beneath to fight for loot. Not my favorite in terms of layout, though I have to say it definitely does the layout in like that template for POIs the best. I don't think there's any other POI that I can think of that does it as well as the Underworld. Because even then, when you land in the lower area, that mechanic I mentioned before can help you take the advantage and can help you, loot a little bit faster. So sure, maybe the guy in the top building is going to get more loot, but if you're lucky, nobody landed with you, you can loot around the smaller areas much quicker.
Wanna see me run to that mountain and back? You wanna see me do it again?
Possibly giving you a better chance in the fight. And again, the art design was great. I really can't mention it enough. I love the Underworld, and I'm gonna miss it a lot. By the time this video is going up, I know that the Underworld's gone, and we're most likely never gonna see anything like it again. Because I can imagine Epic is gonna kind of want to just erase Chapter 5. Which is really sad, because there are some really cool things in this chapter that I think could really stick around. But that's a kind of tangent for the final video in this series. Anyways, next up is Brawler's Battleground, and this place just kinda confused me. It's meant to be, well, a battleground. Though 80% of this place is just kinda buildings with one small area in the middle. I feel like making this more like a POI that's introduced next season would have made much more sense. But that's all I really want to say about it for now. I think it's a good enough POI, I actually drop there a lot, and I think it's fun. Next up though, and our last POI, is Mount Olympus, the mystical land of the gods. And honestly, it's great. I'm not even gonna pull punches or anything. It's the best of the 4 new POIs. The design is exactly what I pictured this mystical mountain would have looked like back in the day of Athens and Rome. Thanks to actually making each building feel important as well, it didn't get caught in that hole that the Underworld fell into, which is a blessing because if it did, I ain't giving out any bonus points. Though, the map changes were pretty good all around. I really enjoyed the new biome, well, the Underworld at least. Olympus was more iffy. Though, mostly, the POIs were good. Again, I think the Underworld did the template of big building, small area for loot the best. I think Brawler's Battleground could have been better, though again, it was a pretty alright POI, and having that one from the next season in now, it's fine. It still kinda sucks, but whatever. And I think Mount Olympus is great. Grim Gates can go jump off a bridge and I never would want to look at it again. But I still like the mechanic there, so it's a 50-50 on Grim Gates. I don't know, I'm not a big fan. But unfortunately, the same cannot be said for... Hey everybody, really quickly before we start going, just wanted to say if you're enjoying the video so far, I'm really happy you are. And if you could like, comment, subscribe, maybe even, let me know what you think about this season, After this video is all said and done, I would love to hear your opinions. And if you want to support me in the Fortnite item shop, please consider using code LandonDoesStuff, that's all caps, all one word, in the Fortnite item shop. And not only that, but we also have a little membership thing. If you join, I believe there's a couple tiers, but some will give you access to early videos, some exclusive community posts, a special role in my Discord server. But I just wanted to say all that before we kept going. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to talk about... Hey there everybody, I just want to say that I ended up throwing a couple of my own suggestions on what they could have done instead to fix or rearrange the loot pool to make more sense with the season's theme. So when we get to that point, I would love if you gave me your thoughts on it as a whole, because I think that they could work. I think that these changes would help improve this season as a whole. And again, I think it's a misstep of a season, which is really sad, but why don't we get started? And I think it's fair to say that I was super hyped when the season first launched. Sure, we may have gotten the basic new rifle, scary shotgun in Fortnite history, some basic SMG. That stuff didn't catch my attention.
Don't care. Don't care. Still don't care. I don't care.
However, the Wings of Icarus and the Thunderbolt of Zeus caught my attention. They gave me hope that we were going to get that wackier vibe of Fortnite for the whole season. And sure, maybe these weapons were a little bit overtuned, but of course, Epic knows that they can balance weapons and make the Thunderbolt of Zeus a bit weaker. The wings were actually really well balanced, surprisingly, allowing you to fly, because they made your hitbox bigger so it was easier to hit you out of the sky. It made so bullet travel wasn't as annoying when it came to hitting anyone trying to fly away. And imagine what it would have been like if every single update we would have saw some new weapon based on Greek gods. And as the first update came, it looked like that was the case, as we got the Chains of Hades.
I thought you couldn't understand me!
And I feel like it's important to say that the Huntress DMR, I'm pretty sure, is meant to be for Aphrodite. I should have mentioned that earlier, but I think that's important to say that it was still cool to see a normal weapon based around one of the gods. And I was super excited to see what was next. But then we just got projectile-based versions of the drum gun, which, granted, made sense thanks to the return of Midas.
Yeah, Midas smacked that shit.
And, he's from Greek mythology, so it made sense that when he came back, his drum gun came with him. But we also did see the hand cannon and tactical assault rifle. This felt lazy and out of place, especially for a season based around Greece's history. Like, why the fuck are these two modern-ass weapons in a season about ancient Greece? All Epic had done was just remodel these weapons to fit into Chapter 5's more realistic aesthetics and allow you to mod them. Wouldn't it have made a lot more sense to see weapons like the 6-shooter, crossbow, and hunting rifle return instead, introducing less advanced weapons in a season all about an ancient part of history? Of course, I could go on listing a ton of other weapons, stuff like the revolver, the flintlock pistol. We could even see something like a prehistoric double-barrel shotgun. And maybe even seeing more melee weapons. Imagine if we saw a spear for Ares. And it's sad to say that we didn't get to see anything like that. I think it would have been a really fun way to mess up the meta, really throw it for a loop, make Fortnite feel super different, but of course keeping some basic weapons, so if people want to just play normal Fortnite, they can, and it's not gonna be like these new Greek weapons are super overpowered, or these old kind of aesthetics. They're not gonna overpower old weapons from Season 1. But even without the fumble that was these unvaults, I can't deny, Epic did a great job in terms of balancing previous nightmares. I gave them a lot of shit last season, but both the Frenzy Auto and Reaper finally got sent to the Shadow Realm after the crazy stunts they were pulling last season. Great job, Epic. I hope that you keep going on this pace, because from what I can tell, you've done a great job in terms of balancing so far. What the fuck is that thing?
Shut the fuck up. Know your fucking place, trash.
Yeah, folks, with the launch of a new season, a new problem surfaced. The Gatekeeper Shotgun. Oh, looks like someone just went ahead and, oh god. Yeah, it looks like someone had an aneurysm when I mentioned the strongest and most brainless shotgun in Fortnite history. Yeah, folks, Epic had finally nerfed the Frenzy Auto. And decided to throw in a new shotgun that was just the Frenzy but better. Great job, Epic! Why are you like this? I should mention that this shotgun also never got balanced throughout the rest of the chapter, and it stayed in the game for the rest of it, so keep that in mind. This is a big problem of mine moving forward, so whenever I'm talking about these next few seasons, just know that the Gatekeeper is on my list of epic what the fuck please fix. But besides this one fumble, I was okay with the loophole. Sure, I would have loved to have some more Greek weapons earlier in the season, though I bet Epic is just waiting to release them in a big mid-season update. And maybe even they would have a mini-pass based on a couple of the gods. I was eagerly waiting for the day the gods' items all got leaked. But let me tell you something, folks. Something got leaked, but it was the most disappointing moment of the chapter. It's common courtesy that in every new battle pass and every new season of Fortnite, Epic will throw in one character or one thing from a separate series. Whether that be someone like Doom Guy, Rick from Rick and Morty,
I'm cranking fucking 90s,
or P. Diddy. It's expected that we get someone from some random series or media. Though thanks to the theme being Greek mythology, everybody was praying that no collab skins had creeped their way into the battle pass. And as trailers were leaked, it seemed like there was none. At least until Epic finally officially released the trailer and Korra was the collab skin.
I can't take this shit no more, man.
So cool. I'm personally not a fan of the series. I've never watched Avatar or The Legend of Korra, though I know people were excited. As Korra's update was finally released, it was revealed that we were getting a full Avatar collab. And we got everything. Skins, landmarks, and a mini battle pass. But the worst part, we got weapons too. Now I know this sounds weird coming from me. I like the goofier things in Fortnite. So when you add all of these types of elemental bending where you could do stuff like throw rocks at people's forehead,
Try me, bitch.
and kick some ass with fire ninjutsu, it sounds great, right? Well, unfortunately folks, it would have been great, and I would possibly be singing a completely different tune right now about this season if they just did one thing. Kept the Greek items and add more after the Chains of Hades. As when the Avatar update was released, we lost all 3 Greek items for a third of the season, and wouldn't see any other items like them for the rest. I'm sorry, but Epic. I'm not talking to the developers. They work hard for every update and they try to make it the best for us as a player. So to anybody who works for Epic, if they are seeing this video, just know this is not a personal attack. And I think this season overall content-wise was still good. But how did they fuck up this bad? It's a Greek season. How do you add these 3 cool as hell items just to remove them and collab with Avatar for almost a month? Season 2 lasted 77 days, and the Avatar collab was around for 21 of those days, taking up about a third of the season. Don't get me wrong, I have to say this again, the mythics were cool, and I have to say, the devs, again, they worked really hard, and I can tell they tried to make this update amazing. But when you have a season with such a cool premise like Greek mythology, and begin to give us items based on the gods and myths from said mythology, and then you decide to do a 180, rip it all away from us, and make greedy executives more money because obviously, you know, the Avatar stuff's all in our face. It's like dangling keys. Buy the Aang skin, well, buy the mini pass to get Aang, and then buy the Zuko skin. I think it's fair to say that I felt wrong. I know I just got really loud and very angry there, and I'm very sorry. But this was probably the Fortnite season I was the most excited for about this chapter. This, like Greek mythology as a whole, if you're wondering why it's so important to me, it was the first thing in school that I saw that really made me interested in learning and wanting to teach. So it has a very special place in my heart, and to see the Fortnite season that I've been waiting for so long, I have literally been hoping and praying for this season to come out, this theme to finally happen. I was so excited. This was probably the Fortnite season I was the most excited about since maybe Chapter 3 Season 1, but I played it the least. Thanks to the mostly recycled content and the shameless cash grab that was the Avatar collab, this could have been one of Fortnite's best seasons in a long time, especially if they added more Greek-themed items and they really played into the idea of the gods being, you know, very important in this season. And it could have been a great defense for Chapter 5 as a whole. With a concept that people have been waiting for, like myself, for literal years, it was hard not to get excited, only to have the rug be pulled from right under our feet. And it's sad to say, but I feel most people are going to look back on this season negatively. When you think about it as this collab was here just to make some more gritty execs money, it hurts. Of course, I understand that it wasn't only that, as they did want to include these new weapons, and the devs did take time to make these as fun as possible. I can't say that this season wasn't a fumble, thanks to both the Avatar collab and the lazy readdition of some old weapons. This season really, really hurts. It stings. This part right here stings the most for me personally, but we can't talk about this anymore. I already got negative enough, and I think we still have to talk about, you know, some of Chapter 5's best. I have to say, Season 2 gave me a lot of hope for both medallions and weapon mods, while introducing a brand new mechanic exclusive to the Underworld. So why don't we start with the one I was most hopeful for? Weapon mods. Epic released 2 new mods for your weapons, and a ton were leaked. It looked like that we were going to finally see some new mods be added to the game, maybe during updates. But unfortunately, with hindsight in mind, all of those mods that were leaked got scrapped, and this was the last time that Epic would change mods in any meaningful way for the entire chapter. Yeah, they ended on the first day of Chapter 2 Season 2. Really sad to see because I think that mods could have been super cool and super fun if Epic took it in a more Fortnite-y spin. Maybe combining augments with them, or maybe bringing back that side grading thing I mentioned before and that Reddit thing I showed. I think that they could have done it so much better, and it's really sad to see weapon mods most likely be erased in Chapter 6. Again, I don't know because obviously I'm not recording this as Chapter 6 is released, but I think it's fair to say that, yeah, weapon mods are not going to come back. But mod benches themselves were no longer located in vaults. Done with that tangent, they were no longer guarded by bosses, but instead they were moved to bunkers that would just open after the second circle closed, allowing players to get some extra loot from the vaults and mod their weapons. However, the problem with the system is really obvious, and I don't understand how Epic let this slide. Thanks to how these bunkers are structured, if you enter, you only got that one exit that you came from. So you have to either, 1, get lucky enough that nobody wants to mod their weapons, which is most likely not going to happen, or 2, as the person that is going to arrive after you finally shows up, you go sit in a corner holding an angle with your shotty, waiting for them to drop down, and of course you get the jump on them and most likely kill them, or 3, both players know about each other and one just sits outside the bunker while the other player sits inside the bunker, now forced to watch and just wait for that player to leave, drop in, or get third-partied. This system is just worse than last season entirely. I feel like it would have been better if instead, of making specific bunkers to mod your weapons, POIs with lower amounts of loot ended up getting the mod benches instead, adding a bit of a pro and con that you may be getting less loot, but these guns have the attachments that you like. It's your weapons after all, so they're your attachments because you go somewhere with less loot. It's a really simple idea that honestly I'm surprised Epic didn't introduce. Though hey, enough about weapon mods. It's time for Luckily, medallions have been reworked from the ground up. While yes, only one player on the map can have each medallion at a time as they're still held by the bosses, I still think reality augments are a much better system by the way. Medallions no longer just apply shield regeneration. With the launch of Season 2, each medallion had been given a unique ability that relates to the boss in some way. For example, Zeus allowed you to move faster and jump higher. Lightning travels fast, goes far. Ares makes your weapons deal 5% more damage, based on the God of War. By the way, this is criminal in all the wrong ways. You couldn't have made it 20% so it actually felt like a threat.
This shit no more, man.
But then Hades allowed you to siphon health off of killed players. And Cerberus introduces the last of the new mechanics this season. Well, the only new mechanic, really.
You wanna see me do it again?
Whenever you enter the underworld's turquoise water, some little skulls will hover around you, until you double jump, dashing in whatever direction you are aiming towards. Cerberus's medallion allowed you to constantly regenerate dashes, making this by far the best medallion in the game, and I'll give you a little hint, medallions don't get stronger than this. We peaked right here. This was the peak of medallions and their usefulness. It was crazy. The dashes themselves, though, are literally the best addition to Fortnite in a while, allowing you to speed up the early game and just move around the underworld more efficiently. And when combined with some other movement mechanics, these 3 dashes would take you far. However, the new and updated mechanics may have given me hope for the future of Chapter 5, though as a whole, some parts of the season were lacking. And I want to real quick do a little wrap up and talk about everything that I think Season 2 really just kind of mishandled. Chapter 5 Season 2 feels like missed potential. I think it's fair to say that if this season didn't get caught in the crossfire of being in Chapter 5 as a whole, the lazy re-additions of old weapons, and the Avatar collaboration, it could have been the best season of the chapter. Though with the state that it released in, it's not surprising to see so many people begin to finally speak their minds about this chapter in Season 2. I know I'm biased when it comes to a season based on Greek mythology, because I'm a huge nerd when it comes to stuff like this. But when this season was given the chance to improve on so many of Season 1's issues, it fumbled. Again, and again, and again. There are several factors why Season 2 fumbled. I already mentioned a couple, but hey, why don't we list them all real quick, just rapid fire? So, starting with, the art design still feels lifeless for most of the map. Bullet travel is still the worst mechanic ever introduced to the game. They somehow got away with adding the least skilled shotgun in Fortnite history without ever balancing or adjusting it. By the way, this is for the entire chapter, not just this season. I'm very upset about that. The loophole by itself was lazy and lacking much new. The Avatar collaboration replaced the season theme for a third of the season, and the mod bench rework promoted toxic and infuriating playstyles that permeated for the rest of the chapter, and really made mods feel like a just kind of side thing that said, oh well, they're in the game now, have fun. Okay, I think that's everything. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you really take the issues into perspective, you can see why Season 2 really missed that mark that I was really hoping for it to hit. But as the season closed, we got another event. This was the first one that I actually missed just because I didn't know about it and I didn't really care about it. But it actually looked a lot cooler, and it was just super nice to see, an event kind of step up from Chapter 5 Season 1's. However, everybody was ready for change. Myths and Mortals finally ended as the island was drowned in sand and overrun by wastelanders. We were taken into the most divisive season ever. Chapter 5 Season 3, wrecked. After the missed potential of Chapter 5 Season 2, everybody was prepared for the summer, and the season that followed suit was Chapter 5 Season 3. I mean, obviously, if you can count, I think most people can count, and they'd understand that 3 comes after 2. And let's just say that this season left the community divided, worse than any presidential debate ever has. This season was very controversial, though I personally loved Wreck. I think that Season 3 of Chapter 5 is by far the best season in the chapter. So I think it's been long enough since the season has passed. I want to give a different perspective to Wreck that most people probably haven't thought about. And I want to give it a chance to be seen as Chapter 5's best season. So, without further ado, why don't we continue our retrospective on Chapter 5 and dive straight into Fortnite's most divisive season, Wrecked. And just like before, we're going to be starting with... The changes to the map were pretty damn good this season, starting with the Wastelanders Desert, which was our only new biome this time. While that may sound like a bad thing, keep in mind that this desert did take over the entire bottom half of the map, compared to Olympus and the Underworld, which only took over small sections of the corners. And the desert popped. It looked beautiful, with these very deep and saturated oranges, especially when mixed with the rich blues of the water found by the oases. Oasis? Oasi? I don't fucking know, whatever the plural for oasis is, because they were scattered all across the biome and really helped to make this biome pop. This season really showed that Epic was beginning to step away from the art direction they were going for with Chapter 5's launch, which, thank fucking God! Oh my lord! The Underworld was just the start. This
is beautiful.
We have finally escaped it. Chapter 4, here I come! I swear to God, if Chapter 6 is mundane and boring, I think I'm gonna jump off a cliff. So this season added 3 new POIs and absolutely decimated Snooty Steps, flooding it with sand and leaving the place in ruin. I don't have much else to say about it besides that they got rid of the Peter statue, which honestly is worse than death. God, just take me now. I just figured I should mention it before jumping into the new POIs that I'm not as happy with. Though, might as well lead with my favorite, Red Line Rig. This place is pretty cool. It's got a very vertical design, allowing you to land at different layers and not get screwed. Unlike other locations which...
Say the line, Bart!
Due to the worst design that some Chapter 5 locations lean towards, overall, it's just not as fun when you land at a place like Grand Glacier, Fencing Fields, Rebels Roost. Yeah! Red Line Ring is better. Overall, a great POI that I'm happy to drop at whenever I have to. If it's a hot drop, I don't care. I'll go there fucking in 2 seconds, bro. I love it. It's great. And even in Season 4, I still drop there sometimes, even when there was the cooler and Marvel POIs, which, that's a topic for a next video. But anyways, I should mention that this place is pretty low on loot, especially since it's all kind of spread out on the different layers. It's a lot harder to create a very consistent loot path, but when compared to other POIs like the Nitrodrome, I think it's still pretty cool. Which, by the way, that's our next location. And I have a quick question, folks. Do you remember when I mentioned that Brawler's Battleground should have been more like a future POI? I feel like making this more like a POI that's introduced next season would have made much more sense. Well, hey, this is it. I would have loved to see Brawler's Battleground take on a more gladiator kind of style. Imagine like this giant Roman Colosseum where you challenge Ares in the center. I think it could have been super cool. But anyways, the Nitrodrome is that realized. It's a big gladiator pit with loot on the outer rim and by some of the stands. While I think the idea of this POI is awesome, it does have issues with clutter and a bit of a confusing design. Even when dropping in now, I still don't know where I'm going sometimes, to be honest. Though, I think the concept of it is still super cool. And if they did redesign it to kind of simplify it a little bit, it could have been another great addition to the map. And honestly, just for the flavor text alone of having like a gladiator ring on the map, it's still cool. However, the same can't be said for our final location, Brutal Beachhead. To be completely honest, this place just suffers from a confusing layout, low loot amounts, and yeah, you ain't winning any rewards for your fucking cluttered, fucking ugly ass, stupid fucking shark face. Fuck you, fuck your combat shotgun, fuck your nitro fist, suck my balls! All this leaves Brutal Beachhead as Season 3's worst location, and in my opinion, it should have been taken back to the drawing board before the final release. But I may not have enjoyed all the map changes. I'll be honest, some of them I just didn't like. The new biome and POIs really hit that summer vibe for the season, however, which honestly is the main goal and what really mattered to me. And speaking of that summer vibe, Epic decided that, well, since a lot of people are going to be playing games thanks to the school year being over, Epic wanted to make it so, well, the season was more approachable to casuals.
What do you mean by that?
And so to do that, they may or may not have really fucked with... Yeah, folks, we're going to be starting off with the mechanics of Season 3. Trust me, this will make sense in like 5 minutes. While I would normally like to talk about the loot pool first, let's just say the season had some, interesting changes to the loot pool, so we're going to ease you in with the new mechanics first. So what did Season 3 change in terms of mechanics? Well, medallions were changed once again, Wastelander challenges and a new movement mechanic were introduced, the return of healing around the map, and a major rework to weapon mods. So, let's start with medallions once again. The amount had shrunken, now down to only 3. We start off with the Machinist. You could find her at the Redline Rig, and her medallion gave shield regen for up to 75 of your shield. This medallion was great, and honestly just a much better way of doing shield regen than how Season 1 handled their medallions. I prefer this a lot more to allow all the other medallions, to be able to kind of do their own thing. And I like the idea that the mechanic and someone about like repairing shit is able to repair your shield. That's just great, and a nice little nod to their character and how they are in the Fortnite storyline. So, big banger Machinist medallion, big pog, great job Epic going back and reworking a old feature and not just removing it for the rest of the chapter. Anyways, next is Ringmaster Scar, who was found after claiming the ring at the Nitro Drone. Her medallion granted a small boost to your damage, much like Ares.
Shut the fuck up! Know your fucking place, trash!
And infinite ammo. For all weapons, by the way. While this may not have been the most useful for most weapons like your basic rifle and SMG and shit, there were some weapons that, when combined, you were able to do some serious damage. Infinite rocket launcher really needs to be studied. This shit is scary. But again, overall a great medallion. I love the idea that Epic was taking these past failed medallions and reworking them and giving them some extra bonuses to make them feel a little bit stronger. Make them overall better. But anyways, the last of our medallions introduces the newest mechanic from Wrecked. Nitro.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
This would increase your character's movement speed and give you infinite sprints. And if you were running into players or buildings, you would crash into them, knocking players back and dealing damage to both builds and players, usually destroying builds on launch. And you are able to get infinite nitro with this thing if you took down Megalodon at Brutal Beachhead. Why do you have to make one of the best medallions at Brutal Beachhead? What the fuck is wrong with you, Epic? On launch, Nitro was extremely powerful, which was not needed. There was already so much this season that Nitro just added to the pile of crazy shit. But after being balanced in a couple of patches, Nitro was just a very helpful way to move around the map, and something that just was nice. It was nice to have. Once again, after the balancing, this medallion was cool. I liked this medallion after all the balancing that it had. Though, realistically, it wasn't the medallion that got balanced, it was Nitro, but the point still stands. Again, a great medallion. The medallions overall this time around were very, very balanced when compared to, infinite dashes, which literally controlled the meta. Shield regen that literally just turned you into a cracked out cokehead. Yeah, so overall, I do prefer this compared to how Season 1 and 2 handled their medallions. So great job, Wrecked. Big dub, big bonus points, love that. Anyways, something that wasn't as broken was the Wastelander challenges, as they were just easy ways to gain XP and level up fast. Or well, I wouldn't say easy, some of them literally you couldn't touch the floor or pick up guns. There wasn't much more to add. I know a lot of YouTubers acted like they were this crazy big thing, though I didn't even run into any of them. They didn't affect gameplay in the slightest if you didn't want them to, so they were cool. If they were forced on you though, that would suck. Imagine if you were playing some like FNCS type shit and you just can't pick up guns without taking damage just cause the Fortnite gods have like cursed you. That would actually be funny as fuck, but thank God they didn't do that. Anyways, Slurp Cacti was added as well, all around the desert, which would respawn infinitely and allowed players who broke them to gain 30 health or shield. It was a nice way to breathe some life into the desert and really make it feel like this biome is abnormal for the Chapter 5 map, as we haven't seen anything like the Slurp Cacti for this entire chapter. Though, I gotta say, this last change is where a lot of the season's main problems kinda were shown from, and I think if we're gonna talk about the reworked weapon mods, I feel like we should jump to... Okay, I'm not gonna lie. The loot pool of Wrecked was fucking crazy. It was not balanced in the slightest. Whether it be the Nitro Fists, which I think anybody who played the season remembers the PTSD players had to go through, when you just got fisted by some guy who just plowed through all your builds. Oh yeah! And blasted you away before you even realized what was going on. Or maybe something like the Boom Bolt, where, you know, you're low on HP, you're trying to pop minis, but then this guy, like 200 meters away, has a sniper scope on his fucking Boom Bolt, and he's just shooting your box and dealing like 5 damage to you each time, destroying your box in the process. Which is kinda crazy when you think about it. We also saw the return of weapons like the minigun and combat assault rifle, which I won't lie, if released last season, I would have said, oh, these are lazy, these are boring. But Season 3 made up with these re-additions by adding new weapons as well, that weren't just collabs. Sure, we did see the Fallout weapon, which I believe is called like the Tri-Beam Laser Rifle, which was cool in its own right because I think it was like the only gun that had hit scan this season, which I think is a very interesting idea. But, as well, I want to mention this before going on to talking about the new weapons, the Combat Assault Rifle could be modded, and this thing was absolutely crazy and I love it so much. It's probably my favorite weapon from Chapter 5. Gas up my man, he the GOAT. Bless up the Combat AR. We love the Combat AR. Though, Season 3 as well added new weapons. The Towhook Cannon, Heavy Impact Sniper, they were introduced this season. As well, we saw another collaboration, this time with Marvel. And it didn't erase the entire theme of the season for a third of it. Instead, we just got something even more broken than anything else we've seen this entire season with the Magneto powers. What the fuck? You can deal like 400 damage to cars with it. Though most of these weapons were extremely powerful. And as well, we also saw the Pirates of the Caribbean items, which you could just summon a ship and crash through everything, which again, was incredible. This loot pool was gonna need major trimming to fit in any sort of competitive scene, because keep in mind, Fortnite at its heart is also an esport. So, we haven't even gotten to the worst part, by the way, for what people still consider the most broken weapons in Fortnite history. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a drum roll, please? I give you the strongest weapons in Fortnite history. Cars.
I fucked your mom, shit lips.
The focal point of Wrecked, and they were annoying before, as people would just get super low and just drive away. But Epic had altered how they functioned. This season had introduced new weapon mods. Though if you remember from last episode, I talked about, oh, this was the last time we ever saw weapon mods for guns be reworked in any way, and that didn't change. But weapon mods were added for your cars, allowing you to add turrets, grenade launchers, bulletproof tires, cow catchers, etc. You would not imagine. These additions had pretty much added a whole new loot pool to the season, and honestly, it did mods the best way they could have. The mod crates were just scattered all around the island, and once running into them, your car would be equipped with the mod. This is honestly the best way they did mods the entire chapter, and I don't know how they fumbled this hard with like weapon mods. But the problem with these changes is that they were extremely powerful, especially since cars could be affected by nitro. They were just crashing through builds with 99% of their bodies being covered by a car and just laser you with a turret. And I didn't write this in the script, so this is a little tangent, but I also forgot to mention about how there was mythic cars, and they could just recover HP for a good third of the season, and they had nitro infinitely, and they couldn't run out of gas? These things were fucking crazy. these things were annihilating people, and they were extremely broken, and they had these wacky-ass weapons. Trust me, even though a lot of people hated it, I was really happy to see Fortnite begin to regain that wacky charm that I feel like it lost for most of Chapter 5. And I feel like what a lot of Rec did could have been put into any chapter of Fortnite's history. But once you realize that Fortnite is an esport, and one of the largest at that, you can begin to see how this isn't the most competitive. Though, Epic knew what they were doing. Cars were absolutely fucking busted on launch. As well as the few new weapons, with the fucking infinite ammo medallion, oh my god! The infinite nitro medallion on launch, 75 damage, fuck your box, it's gone. It was crazy. As well, other new mechanics like the slip cacti infinitely refilling even in Storm allowed people to just camp in Storm for as long as they fucking wanted. Because they could just sit by a cactus. And I'm pretty sure they respawn like every 10 to 15 seconds and they gave 30 health. Meaning that in a 2-tick Storm, you were fine. Plus there was that area with just 3 cacti, which you could just kind of keep whacking whenever you needed health. And remember, there was 3 of them lined up all together, so by the time you ran out of your last one, guess what? Oh, the other 2 are already refilled. It was not hard. But I just have to imagine that Epic would save themselves the nightmare and keep everything like these new items, like cars and nitro, out of competitive modes or extremely nerfed in said competitive modes. Right? And I think it's time to talk about. Alright, I want to keep this part short because I don't like talking about the Fortnite community in my videos because I don't think it's really needed. But I think for Rect it's very important, because the Fortnite community was split. Casuals loved the season for the wacky and fun time it was, while competitive players who played this game for a livelihood and want each fight they entered to be determined more by skill than dumb luck, hated it. It's no surprise, the casual and pro players always had a complicated relationship. They usually hated each other. But I will say Epic, in terms of, balancing, did a good job at keeping both casuals and pros happy. Specifically thanks to the ranked mode, Epic was usually able to keep most broken or overpowered items out of the ranked loot pool. But for some reason, I don't know who got hit on the head while developing this, Epic let all of the new crazy mechanics and items from Rect into ranked in tourneys, which did nothing but make this whole situation worse. I'm never gonna say this was a good idea. This season was great with friends on launch, but as soon as you either hopped into solos or ranked, you're gonna want to chug a bottle of bleach like it's a chug jug. Though you may be wondering, on launch? What do I mean by on launch? Well, Epic didn't just leave pro players out to die, they couldn't let their esports scene just fucking vanish. They're not stupid. Early in the season, Epic would begin to nerf the cars, nitro, and the extremely broken nitro fists. Then add counters like boogie bombs and EMPs back to the loot pool when the nerfs weren't enough. Though these were great additions, they should have been in on launch. Specifically the boogie bombs and the EMPs. As well, the nerfs to the cars were pretty major, and they left the casuals angry, specifically at the pros, for ruining what they saw as Fortnite's best season in a really long time. So of course, the two sides began to go for each other's throats. And yeah, this is not good. Though, even then, the worst part is that the pros still didn't enjoy Season 3 after everything got nerfed. They still saw it as an unskilled and annoying cesspool. Like, this left Epic in a horrible situation that they never should have even tried to, balance. Each side was at each other's throats, and the people who had once loved Rect now began to hate the season thanks to their piss-poor balancing act that was the cars and the overall season's theming in competitive. And it's sad because the solution was so simple, and everyone was saying it when they were making videos about Season 3. It was a super good season, but all Epic needed to do was cut out most of the new items from ranked in tournaments. Keep pros happy and let the casuals have their fun for the season. I know that there's been a lot of negative talk about Rekt specifically in this video, and as I said at the start, I love Rekt. It's my favorite season this chapter, and honestly, probably a top 10 season just in my personal opinion in all of Fortnite. I'm supposed to be defending it, though I don't think it's fair to only cherry pick the positives. Because I think that, you need to have that balance, you need to have that full perspective if you're really gonna give it a look. And I won't lie, from looking at this as a competitive side, I can see why you'd hate it. And I can see from a casual side why you'd love it at first, but then grow to, kind of become a bit saddened by the state that it was left in. But, again, I think that I've mentioned all of the important things of Wrecked. So, I think it's finally time that I give you my defense for Chapter 5, Season 3. Wrecked. So, I just want to start this section by saying that it is all just my opinion, and if you disagree, that's perfectly fine. After all, it's what makes us all unique, and variety is the spice of life. So, just please, if you do disagree, comment with how you feel, and I'd love to strike up an actual conversation and, have a decent discussion about this season and chapter as a whole. And please, if you're gonna comment, don't just let it be you suck, Wrecked was awful, or Season 2 was my favorite, I hate you, go die in a hole. I'd actually like to hear, some reasons why you think that way. And I don't want to belittle anybody. I want to go ahead and actually, have decent discussions. But why don't I start talking, actually about what this is for? So, I think it's safe to say that Wrecked is by far the most creative season of Chapter 5. While I believe Season 2 could have taken this title, there were some issues with giving it that title, man. But this season as a whole feels like something we could have seen from an older Fortnite season. Of course, the cars were kind of crazy on launch.
You're fast enough.
When playing casually, I always had a blast during the early days of the season. No one can take away how fun day one was, right? When you're not playing competitively, this season was just some good old Fortnite fun. And we can't forget about the best mode that's come from the metaverse so far, Reload. I don't need to talk about all the positives of Reload, as it just allows Epic to test all these crazy things in BR, and not lose players, as you can always shift to a much less complicated and cluttered loot pool by playing the fast-paced, smaller version of Fortnite OG. As well, I gotta mention again, the art design began to step away from that boring and lifeless style from the introduction of the desert, and I have to say this is a great thing for me personally. I hated how Fortnite looked, and I'm not really a big graphics guy, but when I literally look at a game, and I think it looks bad, like I don't enjoy looking at it, it makes me want to... Oh my god! Oh jeez, oh my god! The season also saved Fortnite from that identity crisis that it was having for a while, which if I remember correctly, around Chapter 5 Season 1, that was when it was seen, a lot of people started making videos and started talking about Fortnite not really being the same game, and stepping away from what made it unique, and, losing its identity. Which, I'm really happy to say that they didn't fall down the rabbit hole that is, losing your identity. And especially when you consider stuff like the collabs this season were super powerful, they didn't remove or distract from the season's theme, which I think really helps to show that Fortnite wasn't just, a corporate cash cow. Unlike Season 2, they fit right into the loot pool, and it, if anything, it added to the season's theme. And unlike Season 2, they didn't remove the theming for a third of the season. And I don't think Epic has done so well since Chapter 3 Season 1 when it comes to introducing collab items into the loot pool. Obviously, I'm talking about the Spider-Man shooters.
Spider-Man!
As well, the introduction of the Wanderer, which was a fun little NPC that you couldn't kill, unless if you had gas cans, which, thinking about it in hindsight, it's really funny to think that that's his weakness. But it was a really fun way to hype up the next season, and the live event revealing where Pandora's box wound up after Zeus got all pissy was also awesome to see. This helped to show that the storyline had evolved from its beginning, and instead of the box just being some stupid excuse to go to Season 2, it helped to build the season and the chapter storyline as a whole. As well, I think it's safe to say that Wrecked is where Chapter 5 began to rebuild some kind of semblance of an engaging storyline. Of course, next season, I'm going to talk about it, does an amazing job at this, but I also want to mention something from the previous season, actually. Winterfest. We all remember how bad it was. It felt rushed and forgotten thanks to all the new modes most likely being prioritized, which really sucked, because I always loved Winterfest. I always loved Crackshot's Cabin. It was a personal favorite of mine, so to see Epic really kind of push it under the rug and not really care about it, it really hurt. And honestly, I thought the summer event was gonna meet the same fate when it first released. But it really pulled a 180 in terms of quality. Starting with just 3 basic rewards, which honestly really sucked. Though Rank did finally get fixed, which I have to say I'm much appreciated for. But then we got the Cybertruck for free and a bunch of other free rewards.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Just thrown in there for fun. And we ended up getting a full-blown collaboration with Pirates of the Caribbean. which I believe was the first time since Chapter 3 Season 4 that we've seen a POI added mid-season.
Bring me my money.
Sure, it was only around for a limited time, but no matter what, you could tell the devs at Epic really wanted this update to beat the Avatar one. And in my opinion, well shit, they blew it out of the park.
Fuck you!
As I mentioned before, they didn't even abandon the season's theme for a third of it, and they kept adding to it as the collab was going. And that's just awesome. While Rekt did have a lot of issues for competitive players, this is the reason why, well these are the reasons why, I think whenever people say Rekt was the worst season or Rekt was awful, it isn't true. When compared to something like Primal, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure on Fortnite.gg is ranked the worst season of all time, the issues of Rekt were solved. For both sides. If casuals didn't like the cars and how crazy they were, guess what? They could go to Reload and play OG Fortnite pretty much. And if pros wanted to play competitively and they didn't like the cars, guess what? They got removed in Ranked. Like, the problems of Rekt were eventually solved. Primal didn't improve for the entire season. It was always very mishandled. I think everyone can agree on that. Poor map, poor loot pool, and poor mechanics. But the same can't be said for Rekt. Once cars were removed from ranked lobbies and Reload was introduced for the casuals, this season was finally able to embrace what it should have been from the start. Wacky fun for casuals, and a compelling competitive season to watch and play. As someone who personally started getting back into competitive around this time, I have to say it started out really fucking annoying, but when cars got removed and Nitro got balanced and everything overall started to get better, the season was really fun. And I think that's really all I have to say in the defense of Rekt. I want to go ahead and close out with this though. Do I believe that this season was healthy for Fortnite as a game and for the Fortnite community as a whole?
Did you eat a tree for Wire?
Epic really did mishandle this season, for pro players specifically, and there's no one else to blame but Epic for all of these flaws and balancing issues. Especially in comp, I need to add, if Epic just removed the cars, casuals could have still had their fun. And they could have kept the cars super powerful, but of course they had to, make it so the competitive players actually could play the game, and they tried to strike that happy ground, but in a season like this, there is no happy ground between casual and competitive. This season was wacky fun. Epic should have realized that and decided to say, okay, we can only put in Nitro and the Boom Bolt, and that's it. We can't put anything else in for competitive this season. And it's just sad to say, but do I think this season was super fun and probably the best of Chapter 5? I think Chapter 5 of Season 3 is incredible. While issues like bullet travel still existed, I almost forgot about them all in Rekt, thanks to how goofy and fun the season was. But, of course, as the season came to a conclusion, we had another mini-event, where it was revealed that next season was going to follow in Chapter 2's footsteps, and, be focused all around Marvel, with Dr. Doom invading the island and preparing to take it for himself and shape it in his image. As Rekt ended, we entered Chapter 5's final season. Chapter 5 Season 4, Absolute Doom. We finally made it, the final season of Chapter 5. It's been a long ride, hasn't it, folks? We've had the good, the bad, and the ugly.
He was so ugly that everyone died.
Though, now with that all being said and done, we finally arrive at the conclusion. With Dr. Doom arriving at the island and tampering with Megalodon's plans, he absorbed Pandora's power, bringing villains like Emma Frost and Mysterio along with him to the island. Of course, we wouldn't be forced to fight against these monsters alone, as many heroes made their way to the island. As well, we were slammed headfirst into Season 4, Absolute Doom. And as usual, it's time that I, Landon Does Stuff, take you through this season's map changes, loot pool, and new mechanics that were introduced. So, why don't we get started with... Okay, I gotta say first things first, I am not a Marvel fan. I like Spider-Man and that's it, we keep it at that. But Epic did a great job with the biome this season. With lively greens filling the forests and plains of Latveria, much like in Season 3, it feels like that old art design had slipped through the cracks and was able to escape the mundanity of Chapter 5's lifeless art design. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the POIs of this season. With Marvel being the theme of the season, you'd think we'd get some super cool POIs, much like Chapter 2 Season 4 with Stark Industries. And those POIs would have some tie-in with the bosses that ran the POIs. Instead, we got a basic prison run by Emma Frost, Doom City run by Mysterio, in Doom's personal castle, run by a robot meant to imitate Doom because he was off doing some Pandora bullshit. But these 3 POIs all feel lackluster in terms of Marvel theming, and I'm not even a big Marvel guy. To throw an example out, what if Doomstot was instead a hall of mirrors, and Epic could have designed a couple of different versions of the POI that would randomly be chosen from each game? This would help to lean into Mysterio's powers of trickery and illusions. I don't know much about Emma Frost or Doctor Doom, so I'm not going to try to give them a POI or at least go in depth with it, but from what I can tell from Emma, she likes her riches, she likes her jewelry. So what if it was a mine with a bunch of veins of super sought after resources like your diamonds, your sapphires, your rubies, your emeralds, your quartz, like something like a reworked version of Shifty Shafts, which in its own regards is one of the best POIs in Fortnite history. Shifty Shafts my goat. As well, I feel like Castle Doom is very generic.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And I would love to see some more personality thrown into the POI as a whole. Again, I don't know much about Doom to comment on how to alter it or if he would alter it if it was a castle in his image. Though even then, most of these new POIs feel very uninspired for a Marvel-themed season. How did we just get an uninspired prison, castle, and city with the same theme as the season that brought us Stark Industries? It doesn't make sense to me personally. Of course, I'm not gonna lie, Chapter 2 Season 4 also had, I think it was called Doom City or something. I don't remember what it was called, but it was literally just a Pleasant Park reskin with one of the houses removed. And it sucked. But it was still Pleasant Park, so it wasn't that bad realistically. As well, I forgot to mention we also got one last new POI, which was Doom's Courtyard. And it was just a worse version of Classy Courts. And I mean, it's still good. It's worse now. So overall, Season 4 misses in terms of new POIs. Again, I think Epic should have made these POIs designed based on the boss's powers, based on what they like, their ideologies. You know, it wouldn't make any sense if Iron Man just ran some random fucking, some basic-ass skyscraper and they just called it the Stark Skyscraper. No one would care. It's oh, it's a skyscraper. No, bring Stark Industries in. That makes more sense. It ties in with the lore of Marvel. Super cool. And I think this season is by far the worst we've seen from map changes this time. While Wrecked was much more of a mixed bag, it did add more to the map, and overall the changes were cool to see. While Season 4 does, fix the art design issues much like Season 3, it still doesn't work very well overall. But hey, this map may be a bit of a downgrade in my opinion, though the Chapter 5 map is already pretty good. The only thing that held it back was the lackluster art design, which has almost been completely eradicated. So the map may not be an improvement, though Chapter 5 already had a pretty good map, so it's okay if the map isn't as good in Absolute Doom. But when it was revealed we were going to get another Marvel season, I was really wondering how Epic was going to handle. Okay, so much like how I started with the map section, I just want to say I am not a Marvel fan, so if something doesn't jive with me, and you're like, oh, it's super cool because it's Marvel, because it's War Machine. I don't give a shit! I don't give a shit! It's not because I don't like Marvel, it's just because I haven't watched most of the shit. I don't get the references, so it's not I'm looking at this just from a balancing standpoint. Just from, is this fair? Is this fun to fight? Is this fun to fight with? So, let's just say the loophole of the season was interesting to say the least. We unfortunately didn't see much balancing for previous weapons, which is kinda common at this point in Chapter 5, which sucks because the Gatekeeper was just the most powerful and brainless shotgun for 3 of the 4 seasons. Still, we saw the usual vaults on vaults, which, God bless, the Striker AR came back, the Burst SMG got vaulted, but we also did lose the card on that's just sad. No! But we saw 3 new weapons on launch. The dual micro SMGs, the Monarch pistol, which worked like a hand cannon that did more damage when aiming down sights, and the Sovereign shotgun. It was a weird pump and auto shotty hybrid that would just deal crazy damage like 180, and then sometimes just hit 27.
I can't take this shit no more, man.
We also saw a reworked version of the Striker Burst with bullet drop, and, well, weapon mods, obviously. So, this was probably the strongest weapon in Chapter 5 as a whole in terms of, rifles. It was balanced as well because obviously it wasn't good at spraying in box fights, but it was good for long range. Though that's it for all of the new weapons. Oh, who am I fooling? It's a Marvel season. Of course we're gonna launch with some Marvel weapons and superpowers. Things like War Machine's arsenal, jetpack, auto turret, Captain America's shield, and Doctor Doom's gauntlets were all on launch of this season. Now that is a lot of stuff for the first day of a season. So props to Epic for filling the launch of Season 4 with tons of content. But I'll be completely honest, I'm not a fan of the strategy for content.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I know, I'm hating, but keep in mind that this is not a attack specifically on Chapter 5. This is more on every chapter after Chapter 1. If you played back in Chapter 1, you'll most likely remember when we got weekly updates compared to the bi-weekly updates we get now. Keep in mind that this is 100% my preference once again. I'm not saying that things were better back in Chapter 1 because I understand the stress this put on devs, but I think Season 4's launch should have had less. I think cutting War Machine, Cap Shield, and the common to legendary Monarch pistols and dual micro SMGs from launch would have helped to give each item much more time to breathe. You may be wondering where these should go instead, as we're only launching with the Striker Burst, Sovereign Shotgun, and the Mythics. Well, each of these items would be given a separate update. If this was the case, instead of how it was on launch, we could have seen the balancing of the season take a quicker and better turn, as Epic would have been able to take time and see how these new items needed balancing separately, and before they were launched, they could, troubleshoot them more. They could see if there was any issues, any bugs. Like, remember when you could just fly infinitely with Shuri's Claws, Iron Man's Boots, and War Machine's Jetpack? Yeah, that probably wouldn't have happened if there was more time to balance it. And if you were to throw these 4 in with the addition of Shuri's Claws, which are actually pretty balanced, the Iron Man Mythics, which I fucking despise, we could have had weekly updates. We could have seen a much better balance as well for most of these weapons, and as I already mentioned, we could have seen a much steadier content flow, and more time to see how these items were in public matches before adding them to ranked. However, Epic didn't go with this approach, as you can tell. We're, past Season 4, it's probably Chapter 6 by the time this video is going up, if not, we're still in Chapter 2 Remix. But you have to ask, how did Epic balance it all? After the balancing war of 2024, Epic must have made sure things were balanced, or just flat out not in ranked modes, right? Yeah, nah, that's a big nope from Epic Games. Everything came in really strong, though some items did get nerfed, like the jetpack, which, really quickly, can we mention fuck this thing? I fucking hate it. I don't care if it was fun to use, I never want to see a jetpack in Fortnite like this again. Fuck this thing. Fighting it when you didn't have one was the most annoying shit in the world. I don't care if the airfights were fun. I never want to deal with it again. Seriously, please. I never want to see something like this in Fortnite again. I swear to fucking God, Epic, if you do this again, I'm gonna have an aneurysm. Please don't do this to me again. And the worst part is I couldn't escape it, because everything stayed in rank too. Though I do have to say, before any big tournaments, Epic did actually lock the fuck in and remove some of the crazy stuff from the tournament loot pool, which is a big dub, but they didn't remove them from ranked, which is just confusing. Don't get me wrong, it was the right call to remove the items from tournaments. I'm never gonna say that, oh, you should have kept the stupid fucking jetpack for tournaments and competitive matches. Big props to Epic for listening to feedback from pros, but ranked is meant to be a competitive environment that mimics tournaments, correct? Yup. And you remove these items from tournaments, correct? Yup. So therefore, you should remove these items from ranked, as ranked is meant to mimic tournament environments, correct? That makes sense to me. Then do it. But we don't want to.
Oh, you dimwit! Take what you wanted and I'll rip your arms!
It's just baffling. Especially after beginning to right the wrongs of Wrecked by removing these items from tournaments, they still kept them in ranked. Eventually, Epic did remove most Marvel items from ranked, and I won't lie, even though I'm not a big Marvel guy, the loot pool was fun, but also infuriating. Fighting people who could just start with a fuck you beam that just did 90 damage, break builds, and then crash into you and knock you off of height, and then if they get low, they just fly away whenever they want, and thanks to Bullet Drop, you're never gonna hit them. These motherfuckers are dodging and strafing in the air, it's so fucking annoying. It's just never gonna work. And, it's just so annoying to fight. I don't understand how, if anybody doesn't like Marvel, how they could like this season. Trust me, when I first used the Iron Man stuff, I thought it was cool, but I realized it was a problem. I wasn't blinded by, oh, it's a Marvel season, therefore it all is good. No, that's not what it means. I think a lot of people, especially Marvel fans who played this season of Fortnite, think that, oh, Marvel and Fortnite good, and that's it, because Chapter 2 Season 4 is so highly regarded. That is not the case. Balancing is a very important part of Fortnite. And while Wrecked was chaotic fun, you could find a car anywhere and you could start fighting. That's where I think the difference comes from. You needed a jetpack. And because of how Wrecked was balanced, where cars realistically were pretty easy to hit, all things considered. And as well, there was a bunch of counters like EMPs and boogie bombs added later. But items like jetpacks and the Iron Man mythics didn't get that balancing. They were broken the entire time they were in the fucking game. And the Stark rifle got murdered by bullet travel. That was an assassination attempt. The one thing I was excited for this season got fucking bastardized, I just want to say. And that hurts me the most. But I really, really have a lot to say. And actually, you know what? Fuck it. Can we talk about this for a second? Every time I went on Twitter and saw Marvel items, specifically that fucking jetpack, get nerfed, there would be so many responses from casual players saying stuff about how pros are ruining this season again, and Epic is bending to the pros again, we're gonna have another Rex situation on our hands, which just isn't the case. I feel like a lot of casuals don't understand that so many crazy and overtuned items in Fortnite 24/7 is not healthy for the game. There needs to be some semblance of balance in a game like Fortnite, and as much shit as you want to give it, Wrecked had better balance than Absolute Doom. You can say, oh well, you could disable the jetpacks with EMPs, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't give a shit, dude! You have to admit, boogie bombs and EMPs, it was much easier to boogie bomb or EMP a car than EMP a fucking jetpack. And with bullet travel as well, oh my god, that shit was annoying. Cars were big, easy to hit. By the time that Wrecked ended, you could tell that Epic made a more balanced, but still kind of wacky season. And especially in competitive when building takes a back seat, there's some pretty obvious issues. And by the way, to all the pros that are listening to me right now and are saying, you're right, casuals ruin this game, da-da-da, they make it so brain dead, da-da-da. I need you guys to understand that I'm not on your side specifically either. It's not the casuals' fault. Having some fun and overtuned items is not the end of the world. Again, Wrecked showed that you can have balance with crazy. And it's not even the casuals' fault that these items were put in competitive modes. Both sides need to stop attacking each other. We need to come together as a community. Fight for a game that is both competitive for pros and fun for casuals. The only way we're going to make this is by having our voices heard. I know most people will just take this retrospective as me saying, Chapter 5 sucks, Fortnite is awful now. But I believe Fortnite could become the perfect game for everybody. Just some people would say it already was and that we're never going to get back to that. But all it will take is a loss in profits for the higher-ups at Epic to increase the resources in all modes, so we can have exactly what we want. Just please, don't fight each other anymore. These videos weren't made to just blindly hate on Chapter 5. I love Fortnite. I've played it since Season 1, and I never once dropped the game. I've been here and played every single season. I've seen the highs from Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5. I've seen the lows. I've seen the happy mediums that have been found. All we need to do is make our voices heard. Please, if you're listening to this, don't go back to blindly hating people in the community because they have a different opinion than you. If you see someone that says they like the mechs, please don't attack them. Whether you're a competitive or casual player, both sides want the same thing. Fortnite at its best. I think I have a very interesting viewpoint because I was casual, then shifted to competitive, then went back to casual, and now I'm going back to try and be competitive again. I'm not going to preach this perfect Fortnite because obviously a perfect Fortnite doesn't technically exist. Epic cannot. They cannot make everybody happy. Flat out. Right? There's going to be people who want the minigun, there's going to be people who don't want the minigun. And you could say that for any topic. Bullet travel, art design, this, that. But I think that's a great part of this community. We're all unique, and you could never please all of the player base. Though we need some simple changes, like a split between casual and competitive loot pools, to stop the endless bickering. But this would be a great direction, and if Epic doesn't want to keep these items out for good, well, guess what? Make, a post or a tweet saying about how, like, oh, these are only going to be in ranked for the first 2 weeks of the season's launch, or for the first 2 weeks of the update. And if they're not fit for a competitive environment, they would attempt balancing, and if so, clarify that hey casuals, these nerfs aren't permanent, and if these items are still issues in ranked, they will be removed and nerfs will be reverted if the community wants. But you may be wondering, how would Epic decide what the community wanted? Well, what if we post polls in the news tab in order to get player feedback? This could help satisfy the majority of players and would allow Epic, to see what all people who actually play Fortnite and don't just go and hate on Fortnite on Twitter, they get to see what they want and they get to give their opinions on changes they believe should be implemented. We can begin to create a healthier and happier Fortnite community. And I just want to say that I'm very sorry that I ranted for a while about the community as a whole. I just figured this needed to be said after getting through Wrecked and the toxicity it faced. I figured this was the best time to talk about my thoughts. But hey, now that we're on a more positive note, let's keep that going with. I'll be honest, there wasn't much in terms of new mechanics. This season, we got medallions changed again, and they were pretty weak. Though Emma Frost's scan medallion was super cool, and a fun change of what medallions have been up to that point. Though, I'm gonna be honest, I'm using this just to segue to the best part of Chapter 5 as a whole. It was finally time for the last of the seasonal events in this chapter, and Epic wanted to end it with a bang. As October came around, it was finally time for the spooky month. Booga booga! And with that came FORTNITE'S, which was, drumroll please, the best seasonal event that we've ever seen! This update brought tons of new and old things into Chapter 5. We got the Pumpkin Launcher, Witch Broom, and Woodstake Shotgun all return, which were all great additions to the loot pool, no matter what season they're brought into. But we also saw the introduction of Boom Billies, based on Billy from Saw. These things would just lock onto players and explode, dealing 75 damage. And honestly, these things were pretty balanced, allowing you to either build in front or just shoot the bombs, though if you were sloppy, you'd take damage accordingly. But we also saw the introduction of the Chainsaw, which was by far the best item from FORTNITE'S, just in general, to be honest. I can't tell if Epic wanted to add a chainsaw and then just figured, oh hey, well, might as well collab with the Texas Chainsaw series.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Yeah! Or if this was just a collab item from the get-go. It hits that goofy Fortnite vibe we all know and love. And by the way, that's the best way to do a collab. When you can tell that it was just gonna be added, like it could have just been added originally with no extra strings attached. That's the best way to do any sort of collaboration in my mind, where it doesn't take away from the season's theming, and it fits perfectly in with whatever update it comes in with. By the way, being able to grind on your chainsaw for extra mobility and skating around the map was so cool and so funny. While pros may have complained for a bit that, the chainsaw was super strong and you could grind through builds super easily.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass up.
It was fairly balanced, and it took a long time to swing, meaning if skilled enough, all it would take is 1 or 2 shotgun shots and the Maniac was down. Overall, the new items were incredible and helped to revive that vibe that we lost for some of Chapter 5. And not only that, but the art direction of FORTNITE'S reinvigorated my hopes for the future of Fortnite, with this beautiful purple glow illuminating most of the map, as a bunch of the POIs either got tons of decorations scattered around, or completely changed like Brawler's Battleground, which then became Brawler's Patch, with the Ultima Carver taking it for his own, with grind vines from Chapter 4 also being reintroduced here, and just as fun as before. Turning Brawler's Battleground, which was once just some basic location that you'd never go to in a match, into a super unique and fun POI to land at, and of course I can't forget that we got a brand new POI, replacing Reckless Railways. We were introduced to Freaky Fields, which was a twisted and dark version of Fatal Fields from Chapter 1. Like, what?
Whoa! Yankee with no brim!
This was awesome to see. Not for the nostalgia, but because the idea of Epic going back and reworking past POIs with modern graphics sounds amazing. Especially thanks to the dark and eerie vibe Freaky Fields just gave off. This place also allowed you to challenge Jigsaw in the Freaky Fields house, and if killing him, you get your hands on some Boom Billies and a Gatekeeper shotgun, if I'm not mistaken. But these aren't the only things Jigsaw brought with him, as there are stations around most POIs, and when accessed, you can duel with another player, starting a timer. And if you don't kill him, and yeah, that's a boom boom bye bye, you're sent straight back to the lobby. So if you can kill him, you'll be rewarded with tons of loot, like Witch Brooms, Pumpkin Launchers, Woodstake Shotgun, heals, just a bunch of FORTNITE style stuff. Though this is, without even mentioning most of the collabs. which were all incredible. This FORTNITE'S is the best that we've had ever. And I want to say to all of the devs at Epic, you did an incredible job on this. And I'm not even done. We saw other modes get smaller updates, which is cool enough in its own right. I'm happy to see with the seasonal event, not only Battle Royale got the spotlight. Horde Rush returned once again with tons of Marvel items this time around, which was the best version of the mode we've seen in a very long time. And we finally saw the removal of the fucking War Machine jetpack. Call of Fortnite Advanced Warfare was finally over. God bless. Fuck that jetpack. Oh my god. Well, I guess the Iron Man items were still in the game, which were still annoying, though they felt much more tolerable since one half of the problem was removed. And overall, this FORTNITE'S was incredible. It did everything I was hoping for and 3 times more. There was no way I would not have been able to play through the rest of Battle Royale without FORTNITE'S. This update was the best update we've seen for the entire chapter. Honestly, if you told me this was for a new season, I probably would have believed you. That's how great this update was. Though FORTNITE'S carried us into the end of Season 4, as we were greeted by our second live event of the season, which is the first time in I think a very long time we've seen 2 live events in one. It might be the first time ever actually. But the event at the time of writing didn't happen. And luckily, I'm recording this on November 13th. So as you can tell, it happened. And oh my god, this was the worst live event in Fortnite history. It was just a live stream at Ruined Reels. That is the most disappointing shit I've ever seen. It had no explanation for how we went to Chapter 5. And again, it was just a live stream on a screen. I don't know why Epic hyped it up so hard, saying, oh, make sure you queue into a bunch of lobbies, or make sure you queue into lobbies earlier so you can make sure you get in and watch this super cool event. Because if I'm going to be honest, the false advertising on this shit, hurt me so hard. I was telling my friends, yo, make sure you log on early. Epic made tweets about it, because you're not going to want to miss this. And then
I've got nothing left.
I was left disappointed. If you want to see my full reaction to the event, I have a stream VOD up, which by the way, it's been copyright struck, so just so you know, if you watch it, someone else is making money off of it, not me. Probably going to be like Snoop Dogg and Ice Spice and all them, which fuck that, by the way. I think that's a stupid thing. In general, the fact that we can be free publicity for the people like Nick A30 mentioned on Twitter, and then they can just take all the money, which again is really annoying. But whatever. The concert sucked, but hey, we also did get a mini live event where we all came together and fought Doom. It was cool, an interesting live event for sure. Though it should have been given its own mode where players were all on the same team because griefers were fucking annoying, and I feel like we should have been given tons of Marvel superpowers to deal with Doom instead. Would have made it feel much cooler and would have made it, super fun. Maybe even unvault some of the old ones from Chapter 2. Though overall, the event was pretty cool, and I appreciate the effort to make 2 for 1 season. I put in parentheses that concerts don't count, by the way, but well, that definitely changed. Even then, I still think it's cool that we got 2 events in 1 season. Sure, one of them barely felt like an event, but more like a fucking Twitch stream. But hey, that doesn't matter. It was finally time for us to return to Fortnite's second chapter, much like last year with Fortnite OG. And of course, that brought back the Chapter 1 map, but this time we entered Chapter 2 Remix. Season 4 had a lot of improvements from earlier seasons. I have to say, I may not vibe with things like the map changes and loot pool when compared to the previous Marvel season, but was this season still fun? Hell yeah! I forgot to mention that this season also brought the return of Siphon to competitive, which I know pros have been waiting for, and even myself, as I've been starting to get back into competitive, I am so happy to see Siphon return, and I hope that Epic keeps it for Chapter 2 Remix. But I feel like this needs to be said again, FORTNITE'S was the saving grace of this season, and the best seasonal update we've seen, just from Epic. It's the best thing we've ever seen from Epic in terms of a seasonal event. And please just make Winterfest like this too. I beg of you. Oh my god, please. I think this season is the second best we've seen this chapter, as the competition is pretty weak. Of course, Rex sweeps for me personally, but I can see how you would prefer Absolute Doom. Just some of the items were not my thing. I don't like how they handled the loot pool and balancing for competitive specifically. Really hate that fucking jetpack. Really should rot in hell. But I think it's finally time that we answer the final question we've been building up to by looking at these past few seasons. So folks, what was Chapter 5 of Fortnite? Chapter 5 felt like experimentation. Higher-ups at Epic wanted to push the metaverse before it was prepared for release, which we've seen that always never pans well. While doing so, Battle Royale was spun into an almost unrecognizable identity crisis at the start of Chapter 5. With changes to look and feel more realistic, it felt like Epic didn't understand and wanted to kill the core of what made Fortnite so popular in the first place. Though, as the seasons went on, things began to shift. Of course, the transition wasn't perfect, but you could tell even without stating it, Epic took criticism from players who missed the vibes that these old seasons brought. And with each season of Chapter 5, that vibe of Fortnite slowly creeped its way back in. I hope that Chapter 6 is a fresh start for Battle Royale. I think Epic understands that this mode and its charm was and is the reason why Fortnite has stayed in its position since release. I don't think the metaverse is an awful idea, like most people do. I think a lot of people hate it just for the fact that it shafted Battle Royale at the start of Chapter 5, and Winterfest took the brunt of it. However, if you begin to take resources away from modes like Battle Royale, just to rush out unfinished game modes and to remove most live events, like what they did with LEGO Fortnite, Fortnite Festival, and Rocket Racing, players will not be happy, and I feel it's justified. And I think most of Battle Royale's problems, especially at the start of Chapter 5, can be pointed to the higher-ups at Epic, and their direction for Fortnite, turning it into an experience, not a game. However, I don't think Epic will make the same mistakes again. They've learned people prefer Fortnite as a bright and colorful Battle Royale, with fun items, not this realistic and lifeless Battle Royale. I feel that if Epic has not taken this direction in Chapter 5, specifically with the realistic art direction and bullet travel, this could have been the best chapter in Fortnite's history. I think I've rambled for long enough, however. This video is most likely releasing right before or right after Chapter 6's launch, so I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on Chapter 6 and the final event of Chapter 2 Remix. I think that we've really got a chance to see Fortnite return to another prime. With the return of OG permanently, I really hope Epic locks the fuck in and gives the community what they want. A cartoony, wacky, chaotic, but balanced Battle Royale. I'd like to thank you all for watching this retrospective, and if you'd like me to cover other Fortnite seasons, please leave it in the comments below, or if you have any other ideas for what I should cover, maybe seasonal events, maybe metas, maybe past, competitive scenes, I would love to take a look at it. But anyways, once again, thank you all for watching, and if you want to know what I want to see in Chapter 6, I'll be live streaming Chapter 6 Day 1 most likely, and I hope to see you all there. Anyways, I hope you all have a great night, everybody, and thank you for watching this entire retrospective through and through. Once again, if you want to support me, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, you know that whole thing, and use code LandonDoesStuff, all caps, in the Fortnite item shop. If you want to support me. Again, hashtag ad, hashtag epic partner. Seriously, it means a lot. But anyways, adios, everybody. Have a great night, and always be yourself.